I will also have another appropriation workshop and tell you all how the application process works so that you can do it. And I see Commissioner Williams just joined us. So hi, Commissioner. Um, so I last session, well, no, let me go to this session. This session, I had again 7 bills, and my focus this session was on helping Floridians and helping families. So the 7 bills that I proposed, I'll start with a tax rebate for low to moderate income residents, and it created a working Floridians tax rebate program with with DOR. And it granted state funds to certain people who receive specified tax credit and meet certain criteria. The next bill I sponsored was the state certified doulas, which the goal was to get doulas compensated by ACA. And they're having issues with getting their just compensation. So the goal of that bill was to make sure that we have another step in ensuring that particularly Black maternal health was addressed with doulas. And we have data that says that doula care produces better outcomes in childbirth. Then we had the affordable housing inclusionary housing ordinances. So it required housing ordinances to make developers provide a specified number of affordable housing when they're developing. The next one was paid paternal leave. So for state employees, this bill would have given state employees 12 weeks of paid family leave. The next one was notice of restoration of voting rights. So I'm a criminal defense attorney by trade and profession. And it's one uniform document across the state of Florida, and it's called a criminal score sheet. Those score sheets are only used in felony cases. Why? Because you're facing prison and felony, and you're also facing, depending on your charge, the complete ban of you being able to vote again, depending on the charge. My mind went blank just now. So what my bill would do is on the score sheet, it would actually have the notice that tells you what the constitutional provision for Amendment 4 that passed some years ago that gives returning citizens their right to vote again. It tells you what charges that would completely exempt you from being able to vote again. And it also would require the state attorney, whatever defense attorney you have, and the judge to ensure that every person received a score sheet. So every person had the notice that tells you when you paid all your fines and fees and you're finished with probation, if you're not charged with any one of these listed crimes, you can vote again. And then the next one was a school readiness program. So that bill was very simple. It was 2 pages. It was to change the federal poverty rate from 150 to 250%. Why? Because as we increase our minimum wage amount, people are now becoming ineligible for subsidies for early learning care. And that is a big issue. That is a workforce issue because if I have nowhere to send my kids or if I can't afford it, guess what? I have to be home. And if I'm a qualified employee of the clerk's office or the city or whatever profession, whatever company, I can't go back to work because early learning care is expensive. And I know this because I have a whole bunch of nieces and nephews. And then the last bill was to create a child support order. So yesterday, we know that the Supreme Court issued a ruling in the 15-week abortion ban litigation, and they also ruled on 2 different ballot initiatives. One ballot initiative will put abortion on the ballot for Floridians to vote, and it's Amendment 4. And then the second one was recreational marijuana, which is Amendment 3. This is not an opinion of the Opa-locka mayor or the commissioners, but vote yes on both of them. Okay, that's from me. Now, right now, so let me go back to the 15-week abortion ban decision. So that litigation was from Planned Parenthood against the state of Florida, and in that case, the right of privacy, which is in our state constitution, was being challenged. And what the Supreme Court did was they deviated from years of precedent, just like the United States Supreme Court did when they overturned Roe. And they said that we do not have the right of privacy enumerated in our constitution that would extend to abortion. So in 2023, in 2022, the 15-week abortion ban was passed, and it was passed bipartisan. And my That's why I ran. Okay. I ran because I was like, the government has no business to tell me what I can do and cannot do with my body. There's not one law on the book, not one, that tells a man what he can and cannot do with his body. Okay. All right. So in 2023, they came back and so in 2022, they said, no, 15 weeks is all we're going for. And I mean, the Republicans and my former opponent, okay? Because those were the people that voted for the 15-week abortion ban. Then in 2023, they came back and said, actually, we want 6 weeks. So 6 weeks is now going to be the law in the state of Florida. So in the bill for the 6-week abortion ban, there was a provision that said pending the 15-week litigation or 15-week ban litigation that's before the Supreme Court right now, if the court upholds a 15-week abortion ban, then it would now go to 6 weeks and it would be effective 30 days after the court makes the ruling on the 15-week abortion ban. So the court made the ruling on April 1st, which means May 1st, we will now have a 6-week ban in the state of Florida. And if you all don't know, the state of Florida was the place that all these other southern states with no access, where they would come. And there would be a lot of cases in North Florida, particularly, where a lot of minors, little girls who were raped by family members and so on and so forth from different states will come to the state of Florida for that particular purpose. And so now Amendment 4 would allow the same protections that we've had since before the 15-week abortion ban to now become law again. And it will be enumerated in the Constitution by the initiative on the ballot, which means vote yes on Amendment 4. Okay. So what my bill did is, I'm not changing any hearts and minds in Tallahassee leadership or the majority about abortion. I'm not. But how do we address the outcomes that are going to happen? There are going to be a lot of women who won't return back to the workplace. There will be a lot of families who now have new financial burdens with the kids. And so my bill would have created a child support order in utero for a woman who wanted to terminate the pregnancy, but found out she was beyond the time limit and she could not. It would create the ability for a child support order to be entered from the court, the money to be deposited into the clerk depository. And once the baby was born and DNA was confirmed, and that was the father who deposited the money, that money would go to the mother to compensate for whatever expenses prior to birth. And then a child support order would be done going forward, so that the goal is this child would be supported by both parents and that it wouldn't just be the burden of the mom. So that's what that bill did. So those were my bills. And the Democratic caucus had different bills. We had a housing solution, an insurance efficiency solution, expanding Florida families' access to Medicare, environmental protection, gun ownership, safeguard, and for the voucher program for our public schools, and to a bill that protected Florida workers. And those were priorities from the caucus as a whole. Now, when we talk about bills so you all know we were in a super majority, super minority status, which was a wild experience for my freshman year. Okay. But this session, we were able to stop some really bad bills with our questions, with making sure that we brought out how terrible these bills really were. And some of the bills that were really crazy was the Confederate Monuments Bill that was being couched as a historical monuments bill. And I'm particularly proud because I got the bill sponsor to admit that it was about Confederate monuments with my questioning in committee. So that bill was killed. And if you all were watching the news or anything, the Senate, we had racist people come to our committee hearing of the bill, but the Senate, they went out with fireworks. And so that bill got killed in the House and the Senate. Then we had a bill that would have reversed the gun protections that were passed after Parkland. That died. A total abortion ban bill was actually filed by Rep. Barrera, who is a Miami rep. There was a bill that was an defamation, bill that would have made it very easy to sue journalists, and it would have been a challenge to long-standing constitutional law regarding freedom of speech, namely the New York Times versus Sullivan case. That is a seminal case from the United States Supreme Court, and that died. So there were a lot of it was a lot of questions being asked. So our strategy in the Democratic caucus became we were able to kill some bills, right? We were able to really rally against the policies and how bad those policies would be. But there were a lot of bills that we couldn't stop, and we could only establish records for it to be challenged in a court. Now, what's very important is making sure that when these bills are challenged, there is a clear record. There is no ambiguity about what the intent of the sponsor was, and there's no ability for them to say, oh, we didn't know. Right. And so that was how strategic we were with our questions. We asked questions that created the clear record for the court to know, well, you're arguing this in court, but the legislative record says this or says that. And so that's how we had to combat a lot of these bills, because we see that the voting maps, the 15-week abortion ban, even though the Supreme Court upheld that, which we kind of expected, we had I wasn't there for the 15-week, but we have clear records going forward with some of these bills that are being passed. Oh, the Don't Say Gay bill, you saw how that was settled out of court, and they already knew it was unconstitutional, but they did it anyway. But anyway, so one of the bills that, or some of the bills that particularly affect Miami, I'm going to talk about the property insurance, because I know the Republicans have no appetite in fixing that problem, because they say the free market will balance itself out. Okay. So one of the bills that came up, it was a property insurance reform bill. And I don't have the bill number, but I think that was by Rep. McClain. And that was towards the end of session. It was two bills. It was one by Rep. McClain and one by Rep. Stevenson. But it was the Rep. McClain bill provided a 1-year tax insurance cut equaling to about a $50 savings per homeowner. Unregulated surplus lines, insurers will be allowed to take policies out of citizens that cover second homes. So in that bill, there's a provision where you actually have to ask your insurance company about this subsidy that you're able to get that the bill created. There's no notice requirement for the insurance company to tell you to ask for it. So I'm telling you right now, I think it's with Citizens. Alexis, was it just with Citizens? It was with Citizens. You can ask Citizens about, I don't know if the governor has signed this bill yet, but you can ask Citizens about the application that you have to do. I can get the language in the bill because I asked a lot of questions about it. The insurance companies have no duty to actually tell you you have that ability to do it, but I'm telling you that you have it. And I don't think the governor has signed it. I'll follow up. We'll probably post it. 7073. Okay. So it's HB 7073, and that that part in the bill allows you to actually tell your insurance company you want to apply for. I can't remember the name of it, but it's like a tax break on your insurance. So contact your insurance company if you have Citizens. Homelessness. So I don't know if you all remember last summer, I believe it was, when they were talking about creating a homeless camp out on the Key Biscayne. And it was a whole bunch of ruckus. Oh, you can't create these camps. Oh, you can't do this, blah, blah, blah. Well, guess what? Now they can. The legislature passed HB 1365, and it allows municipalities to create homeless camps. Now, in that bill, they said that they would have to find a location where it would not diminish property values. Exactly. How? Not only how, exactly where, and you know where. The same places that they think correct, that they think, oh, they don't matter. Uh-huh. So we're going to see how this plays out. It is an unfunded mandate. That bill actually relies on a federal grant. I identified the federal grant on the record in Tallahassee. I don't remember it by name off the top of my head right now, but there's a federal grant that Miami-Dade County particularly has that provides funding to nonprofit organizations that provides assistance for the unhoused in Miami. So I'm not really sure how that's going to look. I know in the bill it said that there had to be a process where the prime location had to be determined, and the location had to be a place where the homeowners in that area, their property value wouldn't dip. Being that a lot of in my district in central Miami-Dade, a lot of gentrification is happening. I don't know how that's going to look in Miami, but that's something that we need to definitely be aware of and stay on it. I just don't know how local governments are going to, enact this mandate that the state has made with no real guidance or and no funding. So it'll be reliant completely on the federal federal grants that are one-time grants. Um, there was an HOA bill, HB 1203, that gave residents or HOAs in the state have to give residents its rules and covenants, um, and let them and is required to give them notice about updates to those documents. And the last housing bill that I'll mention is it was a Live Local bill part two. I voted no on both Live Local bills because provisions in it don't necessarily help my districts. So it attempted to alleviate some of the concerns from the Live Local, because prior to that bill coming out, this second version of the Live Local, we had articles coming out from different publications across the state of Florida about how luxury apartments are being built and are receiving the affordable housing deduction or tax break with some loophole that we told them was in the original Live Local bill. So this was allegedly supposed to fix it, but it really did not address or incentivize any type of affordable housing, which is what they couched the Live Local under. Any questions about those so far? I'm gonna go on to education next. Yeah. Well, the bill did have a provision that said they aren't required to go to these homeless camps, because that was a source of contention. Um, but all the points you just made, all the points you just made are valid. Those are all made. I don't know. That's what we asked them, and they were like, well, the local governments are going to have to figure it out. That was their response. Oh yeah. So the squatters bill, what's your question? And I'm gonna respond to that.
They gotta get, to come back to see if they qualify as homeless. And during that time, they're still homeless.
Mhm.
So it's us the one, it's our city that is doing that. Not, you know what I'm saying?
Well,
They don't care about the homeless at all.
well, I understand what you're saying. I don't know the process with City of Miami.
Gotta go to the city and like, for them to get assessed to see where they're gonna go. So if a family of four goes to the city of Miami and calls them and they call 211 and say, hey, listen, I'm about to be kicked out, tomorrow, they have to be appointed.
I don't know. I can't. I hear what you're saying. I don't know the process. I know 211 is, I think that's a countywide number.
Yeah.
For reason, yeah, it's a countywide number. So I know that that is as a used as a resource for people to figure out what is available. I don't know the city of Miami process. So if it's somebody in the city of Miami, I know that that municipality would be the one that they would reasonably go to, but I actually don't know the policy to that. To go back to the squatters bill, the squatters bill was trying to put people in prison for 15 years. And I vehemently objected to it. And I was like, you want somebody to go to prison for 15? Do y'all hear what y'all saying? I think they eventually took that part out and it's to and they had a whole I saw the first version of the bill. It was a whole bunch of ridiculousness in there. The first time around, what they're saying is happening is people who own multiple homes, people are moving into their homes and they can't get them out. And that was the motivation for the bill. So we'll see how that works out and how that plays out as well. Going on to education. Ciao. So we had some, yes, move on.
Then they have a green shirt. Green shirts can come out, evaluate them, that's the whole thing. So between the village, Chapman, Holy South, Rescue Mission, they're all filled right now, every last one of them.
Mm-hmm.
And so now you have a waiting list of people that are trying to get beds. So if you go over town right now, they got block 55, all these different products going up. So eventually, the gentrification going up, they're going to move those people out from over town. So where they're going to go? But now you already have passed a ordinance, and they're already bringing about the market over time. So they're going to push them somewhere. Think of it as where they're going.
I know, and that's what I said. I mean, we got to flip the house. Honestly, we got to flip the house in the legislature so we can actually have viable solutions. But those are the points that we made. You all are talking about one. You're talking about people. Okay, these are people. All right. Two, you're talking about putting them in this camp. Where does this camp exist? What land are you putting them on? Is this just a place where the police can just come indiscriminately and arrest people? They're like, no, it's gonna be safe, it's gonna be this. I'm like, are we giving them mental health resources or like nothing? It's just so that they don't they're not on the streets or they're, like that's really the goal. There is no plan. There's no plan to enforce this. So I hear y'all. I just don't have an answer because when we asked for the answers, we were not given it.
And then it has in the police department, a place where the homeless actually store their bag, but it's lonely. So there's a lot of moving parts that people are not aware of paying attention to. But then at the they, as you're saying that they are people. But as you're moving people out of areas, what's your good at actually?
I in Miami, I don't know. I really don't know the answer to that. I think we're going to see a wave of the unfunded mandates from Tallahassee that, so there was a lot of preemption that happened this session, and there were a lot of unfunded mandates. And I'm not sure how that's going to manifest in reality and what it's going to look like, especially when it comes to something like that. I don't know the answer to that now. I'm going to see and do some work with people like you who know this stuff. I believe in deferring to experts. I'm not reinventing the wheel. Okay. I know I don't have to be an expert in everything. So working with the groups that are already doing this work and listening to, hearing what they're telling me. And then from my point, I can call whatever state agency I can call for help and liaison with the county and the cities. However, this is an unfunded mandate. So there's no money coming from the state for this. Zero. And it was made very clear. And I don't know. That's honestly the what I have for you right now. It's something I am aware of, but yeah. So we could talk about it more later. I'm just gonna keep going. So there was some deregulation for public schools that happened, SB 7002 and 7004. It started to unpack the amount of regulations that this public schools are under versus the charter and private schools. So the Senate versions were a lot better than the House versions. The House always act like they gotta be the unruly middle child. I don't know why. So we came to some type of compromise. I think it should have gone further and we should have just completely adopted the Senate version, but some parts we didn't. Now let me tell you, I don't know if y'all saw me going off on social media about the one bill. It's HB 1291, and that's the second part of Stop Woke. And this part of this bill extended to teachers and what they could be trained on. And basically, it's another ban of accurate history and DEI with prep materials for teachers. We offered several amendments to change some of the stuff, but the numbers are the numbers. But it's just another racist bill, and it will basically exempt teachers from being taught actual history so that they can't teach actual history to children. And I have some conspiracy theories about that we could talk about offline, okay? HB 931. I need everybody in here to be very aware of this bill. This is the chaplain's bill. So it allows people who just call themselves a chaplain if the school board adopt this. So we need to make sure that we are present at the school board meetings. We need to make sure that we know what's on the agenda. If this item comes on the agenda, we need to have buses and buses of people coming down to the school board so that they do not adopt this. So it is a choice for the school districts to adopt, but it will allow chaplains into the school. There is no certification requirement. So I can say I'm a chaplain. If the school district adopts it, of course, I'm a chaplain and I want to come into the schools. All they have to do is pass a background check. It's crazy. There are no regulation about what will they be in classrooms? Will they be preaching or proselytizing? Proselytizing. I said that word wrong, but y'all got what I meant. See, to children, will they be alone out of the supervision of a teacher with these children? There is literally no guidance for this bill aside from them being or passing the background check. HB 931, and that's Rep McLean from Central Florida, and Rep Daniels from Jacksonville. Yep. And then HB 1349 is a communism bill where they're going to be able to teach communism. And it created 1349, and it created a museum at Miami-Dade, a museum of communism. Of Black history, not history. Yeah. Don't forget the Black, because that's important. Correct. Yeah. Racist, you can say it. Yes, because I say it all the time. Okay. It is. And yeah, I'm just gonna keep going. I'm not gonna get on the soapbox. Those are some of the ones. Oh, book banning. It limits people without children in the district to one challenge per month. The bill that 1285, is this the same bill, the classical school bill? So, okay, 1285 is a bill about classical schools. So, classical schools where they teach Latin, blah, 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 right? So, they created this bill to allow teachers at classical schools to bypass the entire certification process that public school teachers have to go through. And when asked, are you creating a new route to certification? She had no answer, of course. And then it also limited the book challenge to if you don't have children in the school district, you could be anywhere in the United States right now and you can object to books in Florida public schools. Okay. Now it limits you to just one. Okay. Um, okay. There was another bill. Um, I'll come back to that. I gotta think. I think that was the agency bill that got rid of the pilot stuff. That's not education. Okay. All right. Next, healthcare. So they passed the Live Healthy Act. That was aimed at retaining and attracting healthcare workers to the state. So we know that with all the shenanigans that are going on, the medical profession, a lot of doctors or residents who could potentially come to Florida to practice are opting not to because especially when you're talking about GYNs and OBs, they don't want to be the scapegoats. So this bill was to help address those already low numbers or dwindling numbers of healthcare workers. We had a HIV prevention bill by Rep. Gallup Franklin, who was a Democrat, and it allows pharmacists to screen adults for HIV exposure and provide the results of the screenings. We had HB 7085. It creates a sickle cell disease research and treatment grant program with the Department of Health. It specifies types of projects eligible for grant funding, revises sickle cell disease and the sickle cell trait screening requirements. It requires screening providers to notify newborn parents or guardians rather than a newborn primary care physician of certain information. It authorizes certain persons other than newborns who have been identified having sickle cell disease or carrying the sickle cell trait to choose to be included in a registry. So that was a step forward in the sickle cell research and treatment area. And we have different sickle cell clinics that are, one is in Hollywood, there's the second one in Liberty City, and they're around the state of Florida that are providing what's the name of the center? You know what I'm talking about? Foundation for Sickle Cell Disease Research. Yes. See, that was, yeah, that was Leader Driscoll that passed the bill for the sickle cell research. Then we have a hemp legislation that passed. This one was very contentious. It was at the end of session. And it regulated hemp derived products like Delta 8 THC, and it targeted vape products geared toward children. So it sounded like it did that, but what it really did is it picked certain companies that would be able to have a monopoly with the Delta 8. Yeah. So it was like, oh, we're gonna protect the kids. No, you're creating something for a very influential lobbying. Anyway, now I want to talk about APD, so individuals with disabilities. So SB 1758 It requires the APD to offer care navigation services to clients and their caregivers, including but not limited to creating care plans that address immediate, intermediate, and long-term needs and goals of the client. It modifies the application process for APD services, requiring the creation of an online application process and streamlines timeframes that APD has to determine eligibility. It reduces age and requirement of a client's caregiver in pre-enrollment category 4 from 70 years of age to 60 or older, and this will allow a higher number of individuals to be included in category 4 of the pre-enrollment prioritization list. And there are other things that were done. I know that next term we probably will have a lot more legislation to assist families with family members or loved ones with disabilities because the APD wait list is very long. And I do know that that's going to be one of the top priorities for the next speaker, Speaker Danny Perez, and he is from Miami. Um, so let's talk about workers' rights. There's several pages of bills. I'm trying to highlight some of the ones that particularly relate to Miami. So HB 433 and HB 705, those are two bills that I was very much against. HB 433 was a preemption bill and so was 705. So what both of them did is they preempted local governments from being able to regulate how much money private public partnership contracts will pay their employees. So what does that mean? When private companies win a bid with the government, Miami-Dade and a whole bunch of local municipalities had the ability to say you can pay or you have to pay your employees XYZ. We call it a living wage, right? So what this bill did is said, oh no, we don't want y'all to be able to do that. We're going to preempt this to the state, and all they have to do is pay at least the state minimum wage. So I saw this in committee at least twice, and I saw it on the floor. This was my bill I went after this session, 433, because it doesn't make any sense. And the bill sponsor kept saying, well, companies should be able to practice without restrictions from government. I said, no company has a right to do business with the government. It's a private company. They could get contracts in the private sector and pay their employees whatever they want. But when you're talking about working with the government, getting a contract from the government, they should be able to say you need to pay your employees a certain amount of money so that they can actually live. Well, the first iteration of the bill was horrible. And that bill also included the preemption of regulating or implementing any ordinances regarding heat exposure. So for employees who work outside, we have no ability, or the local governments have no ability to regulate shade, amount of water breaks, or anything. The when the bill eventually got to the floor, and it went to the Senate changed it and they deferred the implementation to 2026 when we are at $15 an hour for minimum wage. So it doesn't make any difference, in my opinion, because if you and your family sustain yourself off of $25 or $30 an hour, which is the living wage in Miami-Dade County, $15, what you gonna do with that? Is you could buy milk and a half a bar of butter and 2 eggs. You can't even buy cereal and milk with that. And I'm being real. So that's, in 2026, that's the delay implementation of that bill. My plan is to file a repealer on that bill. Because that bill is really bad. That one was really bad. And then 705, it takes away local projects. So any local project that is purely local money, nothing from the state, but purely local money, they cannot require a living wage with that either. Yeah. And they said the free market is the reason. They want companies to flourish in the state of Florida while the people perish. Another bill was HB 49, which was a child labor bill. Okay, 16 and 17-year-olds, you don't have to work according to child labor laws. You can work as much as you want, but you still got to go to school, and you can't have too many tardies, and you can't have too many absences because that's a no-no. And that's what that bill did. At first it was really bad, and eventually through the process it came, and it improved. But what I saw is we have a labor shortage, and they're trying to fill it with children and not their children. Exactly. I said it ain't gonna be y'all kids working these jobs overnight. You had a question, sir? Okay. So that bill passed. And then the union busting bill. So I'm a union girly, okay? Forever and a day, I will support the unions because the unions give us our quality of life, whether we want to acknowledge it or not. 8 hours a day, that was advocated for by the unions way back when. And so the union busting bill passed last year, and the bill sponsor, Dean Black, never was in a union ever in his life. Okay. So he doesn't really know the functions of a union. He likes to say I'm a 10th, 11th, or 12th generation Floridian. So you know what that means. He's a rancher from Jacksonville too. So context clues. Now, that bill was challenged in court. And when it was challenged in court, the state said, we're not regulating them to have a certain form, right? And so the government said, well, this is not government compelled speech. So therefore, we good, right? That was the state's position. So they came back with this bill, and it said specifically the unions must use this form. Now it is government compelled speech, so it's going to go back to court. And I got him to admit it on the record because it was just, like I said, he doesn't know how unions work. So I said, well, does it do this? And he said, yes. I said, thank you. And so they're going to go to court, I'm sure. And basically the goal of this bill was to eliminate the United Teachers of Day union. That was the ultimate motivation. First, the first iteration was only teachers. Then they said all public unions. So anyway, that's what happened with that union busing bill. Any questions on those bills so far? What? That was SB 256.
Doesn't dictate to the labor by what they're going to pay. Contract dictates to the company what they're going to pay labor. So, you know, saying 2008, 2009, without actually putting the program forward. If a laborer, no skill, winning the job, and that company had a contract saying, doing Jacksonville or the hospital, they had to pay that laborer with no skill $19 an hour.
I hear you. That's that they preempted it.
But I'm quite sure that it has to be still.
No, what I'm telling you is HB 433. Now, it affected workforce programs too. And we asked that and we brought that out. All of them. Even the apprentice, all of them. All of them. Yes. I said that was my bill. That was my bill. Yes. Workforce programs in Miami-Dade and Broward County, particularly apprenticeship programs, all of it. It is a devastating bill, which is why I'm going to use one of my bill slots to repeal it. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. So moving on. Yes, ma'am.
Still set. Pass the Senate, but saying that. That seems something else.
I don't have the comparisons with me. but I have a full chart. Do we have that chart from F one of the partners? One of the partners gave me I was asking about it and asking about data or the comparison. So I have this full chart, it's color coded and everything. It's in my stuff, right? We bought that? Did she email it? Okay. We could give it to you and you can see the comparison. It's a lot of them.
Like that, that.
Yeah. So the process is when we get to the end of session, right? We'll pass a bill on the floor. So if we pass it to the floor, it goes to the Senate. Then the Senate picks up the bill or they pick up the Senate version and then they send it back to us. And then when they send it back to us, it's called messages. When they send it back to us in messages, we have the ability to say, yes, we want to keep it. So the bill sponsor says yes or no. And we can also add amendments. Now, do the amendments pass when it's a Democrat amendment? I had one amendment passed this year. Oh, wow. It was on a bad bill that just made it less bad. It was still a bad bill. But when it came back in messages, it was so like at the last 2-3 weeks of session, we literally have 80 bills, 90 like so looking at it quickly to get questions and stuff, my brain is jumbled. So I have it, but I can tell you, I don't think it was that much of a deviation. I think we adopted a lot more of the Senate language when it came back in messages.
Yeah, that's my side.
Yeah. Um, so let's talk about a couple more bills. HB1, which was the social media bill. So I voted no on that bill all the way until I always I voted no the whole time. And it was because the government was saying to parents, you don't have the ultimate decision on how you want to parent your child. And for me, my position was in Florida, we've enumerated 3 reasons why the government will take away a parent's discretion: abuse, abandonment, and neglect. Unless they were now codifying social media to be under one of those 3, the parents need to have the ultimate decision. For me, well, guess who agreed with me? Ronald Dion DeSantis. Okay. He actually agreed with me. He won't say it though. But I kept saying this needs parental consent. This needs parental consent. I offered amendments on the floor for parental consent. They rejected it all the way till it got to the governor's desk and he vetoed it. So what happened is they attached the social media bill onto HB3. And HB3 was a age verification for porn sites. Okay. So they have to verify that you're over 18, blah, 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 blah. So they attached it on there and they also added the parental consent. On the second go around, I voted yes on it because parents have the ability. So 14 and 15 parents have to get consent. And then 16 and 17, there has to be like some type of notification to the minor that about social media. But the bill goes after the model and not the social media company. Rep Rayner is much better at explaining that because this was her brainchild from 2023 session where it passed off the floor unanimously. And it came back in 2024 and the Republicans stole it and added some stuff to it. And then their version got vetoed and it had to come back and became her version with the parental consent with some of their little, stuff on it. But that was that one. The AI bill, so that was by Rep Rizzo, HB 919. It's about political campaigns and having to have a what is it called? Notice about if it's AI. There are some issues with that bill that I'm sure is going to get convoluted because it goes to the administrative, then it has a criminal part. I think that bill makes sense if it was done properly, and it wasn't. Moving on to criminal, the legal system and corruption. So filming the police. This bill made me so mad. We call it the Halo bill in the legislature, and not because of the purpose of the bill, but because of what happened. So you have to remain 25 feet from first responders, but there's no definite place of saying where's the 25 feet. So if I'm the first responder and you have to be 25 feet from me, and Miss Mary, you're the next first responder, then they could say you need to be 25 feet away. So there's no clarity in this bill at all. Is it where I am with a suspect, or if I'm just on the scene? There's no clarity, and there's penalties where you can go to jail up to 60 days. And in 60 days, a person can lose their entire life for just filming a first responder. And they had some other language in there, but what happened was it came to the House. A promise was made that it would change some provisions that would have made it a really good bill in the Senate, and they didn't adopt it, and they just sent it to the governor's desk as is. So that bill is going to be really interesting to see how it manifests in reality. The next bill, that was a bill supported from Miami-Dade. Anyway, the next bill was HB 601, which basically terminated citizen review boards. That's the bill. Then we had the ethics bill. This was a very important bill that came at was it the last week? It was the last week of session. So Miami-Dade and different ethics boards has the ability to independently investigate an elected official for corruption. What this bill is, it completely gutted their authority. They can't base it on hearsay, meaning if someone tells them like, hey, this is something that I witnessed or it's something I heard, they can't independently investigate it based on hearsay. And they cannot do independent or self-initiated investigations anymore. So I don't know how this is going to work. Honestly, because they really gutted the power of the ethics board completely. And I don't know if the governor signed that yet. He didn't. Excuse me. They're trying to get him to veto it. I don't know. Human trafficking. So there was a really good human trafficking bill, and then it got an amendment added onto it. It was tainted. It was contaminated by this amendment. And I only say this because it was a lot of contradictions going on. We want children, 16 and 17-year-olds, to be able to work unlimited amount of hours with no regulation for the employer. But the amendment that was added onto it said you cannot be 18 to 21 and work in the adult entertainment location, not as a hostess, not as a bar person or anything. Not a bottle girl, a bottle guy, anything. So I'm gonna leave it at that. The juvenile justice bill, this bill was really terrible by Representative Bernie Jocks. This was one of his many bad bills. His other bill was the DEI bill for teachers. Okay. He just loves bad bills. And he knows how I feel about him. So the juvenile justice bill, it basically allows the court to keep children in custody without even being charged for a case for at least, the days isn't on here, I think it's 60 days. So adults, if you are arrested and you're in jail for 30 days, at that 30 day, they got to let you out. So I'm filing the bond motion. You got to be out by the 33rd day. If the case is not filed, you cannot remain in custody. Children can, beyond the amount adults can with this new bill. It's such a horrible bill. There were some changes that made it better from the Senate. I can't remember what it was, but the goal is to reduce the amount of children who use guns. And if they're charged, like even a child the first time they're charged, it's crazy. Well, they're not even charged. It's 21 days, so it remained at 21. So the Senate took out the 60 days. Okay, it's still a bad bill. Then we had another anti-immigrant bill. For a community IDs, you can't use community IDs anymore. And a good bill from Rep. Chambliss was the Returning Citizens Bill for the criminal conviction regarding barber and cosmetology licenses. It went back as far back from changing it from 5 years to 3 years. So that was actually a good bill. Um, anti-consumer bills, um, the PACE loan bill. They try to do something with PACE, but I think it's a predatory program, so they're trying to like make it more have more accountability with the program, but that's that. um the budget, let's talk about the budget. um do we have questions so far? It was a lot of bills, y'all. It was a lot. No, they preempted it to the state. So like they could have a review panel to like review policies, but as far as like complaints and stuff, like the initial purpose of the review boards is done. So the citizen review board was part of the initiative to bridge the communication with police and the community. So yeah, I mean, we still have IA with the different police departments if something happens, but there's no like citizen part, or there's nothing. It's preempted to the state, and the state doesn't have anybody that's gonna like. There's no agency that's. I mean, I think they said FDLE, but it wasn't really. Yeah. Well, no, I'm saying like the governing state agency that would have jurisdiction over that particular issue. It conceivably and reasonably and logically would be FDLE, but it wasn't really clear at all. I think the goal is just to get rid of them. So, any questions? I know it sounds like doomsday, right? Um, welcome to my 60-day life, okay? If you've ever let's see. Um, if you've ever ridden a roller coaster, and you know how you have that first adrenaline rush, imagine being on that adrenaline rush for 60 days. That is session. Day after day, bills after, and I read my bills. So they're like, yeah, she's shaking her head because I used to be like, where's my binder? I need to write on it. And she's be like, Rep, it's like 300 pages. I'm the one reading it. Just print it out for me. Okay. Um, but yeah, that session. There were some bright spots like the sickle cell bill and the barber bill. And who else? There was some Rep Gottlieb filed what was his bill? It was I don't remember, but it was some Democrats that had some good bills. Um, budget. So I have a lot of notes here on the budget. When it came to affordable housing, the budget appropriated 234 million for the Florida Housing Finance Corporation and 174 million for the State Housing Initiatives Partnership Program called SHIP. Um, there were some, I think the governor's migrant flight program and the state guard got more money. Yeah. Uh, the budget, I know we were fighting for a percentage increase from the proposed budget for Miami-Dade County Public Schools to make up for the vouchers from, I think they gave them 1.9% to 2.5% was the goal, and it wasn't given. So I don't know how that's gonna look going forward into the next year with the budget for the school board because of the voucher program. So we'll see. just, put a pin in that. Um, those are the notes that I have. It's a lot. I have like, what was the thing? What was the page from the house? That booklet, it was like how many pages? Yeah, it's like 70 pages of like a brief synopsis of things that happen in Tallahassee. That I can make accessible to you if you like it and like to read over it in more in depth. I just pulled out some bills. Like I have a binder that's this big of the bills of concern that I think that, they'll come up as I continue to share information, but I just wanted to point these bills out from the onset. Any questions? Yes. The DEM, Department of Emergency Management, yeah, I think they have a budget for that. They have a like a little coffer. I'm pretty sure. Yeah, he had another one. Yeah, he did. He didn't have like a maybe it was the other, maybe it was Placencia bill that I was thinking of. Oh, okay, yeah. So regarding the budget, I want to talk about how they disperse the money. So let me tell you about the budget process, okay? So, and we do have a master at the budget here with us today, if she wants to add any commentary. But the process, so with the appropriations projects, we put our appropriations projects and we start working them. We provide a letter to the chair of the committee that they're in. We go talk to the speaker. We go talk to the chair of appropriations. We do all these things and we continuously harass them. That's pretty much what it is, right? Hey, can you put this in? Can you put this in? Making phone calls, sending text, showing up to the office. Here you go. Here's your little card. Here's my letter, whatever. And then the proposed budget comes out. We know what the demographics is in Tallahassee. So the Democratic caucus, do we have the percentage here, Alexis? The Democratic caucus, I think we had, what was the percentage of the budget? No, it was like 10%. It was something nominal. I think LeBron sent that to me. Hold on, y'all. I want to give you the numbers because the budget was broken down into the numbers for the different the two caucuses. That's it. All right. So I can tell you this, the Black Caucus got 2% of the entire budget. 2%. And uh aside from um 2%. Um we did make we debated on it, and when I say we, Rep Antone, he broke down the numbers. It was an abysmal dissemination of funds to particularly Black members' projects. And for the most part, they funded infrastructure projects. So projects that have programming, have preventative or extracurricular or arts that will benefit our community did not receive the money. And You said how? They decided not to. And when they were called out on it, they got mad, which is crazy because you know what you did. Um, but the Democratic caucus, I think it was like 10 to 12% of the entire budget. And we're talking about a surplus of billions of dollars because of Joe Biden. By the way, thank you to the current leadership in Washington D.C. because our surplus budget, majority of the money is from the feds. Okay, so remember that. Thank you, Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. So there was the speaker, I'm sorry, the leader of our caucus made a point to call out the disparity in the budgets because when I vote on bills, I vote on bills that's going to affect Republicans that are in my district and not in my district, just like with them. So when we talk about budgets and we call them out, they're like, oh no, we gave to this. No, because I had XYZ amount of millions. This person did, this person did. Yeah, that was an interesting process. And it was even more so interesting with me. We could talk about that offline. Um, yeah, they did not like the fact that I asked questions. I'm like, what do you mean? I was like, stop asking questions and maybe, no, I'm serious. This was told to me. Stop asking questions and maybe your appropriations will look different. And I'm like, I said, excuse me. Yeah. Um, So it was a battle for me internally. And this is totally tangential, but it was sometimes difficult. I'm like, do I make a point and I know this is detrimental, or do I like give them just like a no without saying anything? Um, some days I did better at that and not, and then not. Most days I did not do well at that. I'm like, y'all ain't finna buy my vote. But it impacted the budget. But I didn't feel as bad because all of the black reps, like even the ones that were quiet, I'm like, you quiet and you like, let me protect my appropriations, and you still didn't get anything, or you got a little bit. So I don't know. But I am hopeful for the next leadership that's coming in. I am very optimistic about that and how that will look when it comes to appropriations next year. I think this term was just unprecedented. And I heard that from everybody who's been in the process for a long time. This was just a lot of crazy, more so than usual. I don't have anything to compare it to, so it was just crazy for me. But I am hopeful that the next term there will be a more even dissemination of the money in the budget across party lines, so in both caucuses, and then especially with the black members, because it was bad. It was 2%. You found it? That was Democratic caucus. Oh, the Democratic caucus got 5.6% of the budget, the multi-billion dollar budget. So yeah. How many Dems? It was 30. Oh, well, the Democratic caucus, it was 36 of us. The Black caucus, it was 25 of us. 25 with the House and the Senate. So the Black caucus makes up both of them. But the percentage I gave was the House budget. The senators had a different, I don't know what their number was. I didn't see any data broken down for their numbers. But the Senate is a different experience and a different way of working there, where they get money. The Senate is just different. The House is the Wild Wild West. And the Senate is like a lot more camaraderie, I want to say. I'm not in the Senate, so this is only what I'm being told, but we have an expert here that can opine. But yeah, any other questions or any? Yes, sir. Hi, Mr. Johnson.
Yeah, it's including it that we're asking for money for multifamily housing, right? But now, also, if a contractor comes inside, the community, bill, they supposed to pay for so many apartments up for low income housing. But if they done found a loop around the house, putting housing in, but we still giving them the money, and the charter schools are taking our kids to the public school, makes the public schools look like we're not able to teach no more. And I'm trying to figure out all these years we had public schools, who came up with the idea that we need to send our kids to charter school, and public school gave us our ideas. So I'm trying to figure out what that, only with the youth killing youth, and then our community being sold, like you're saying, gerrymander, not gerrymander, gentrification. So now we got
Both,
gentrification,
actually.
folks finding routes to get the money and not give the affordable housing, and we're asking for affordable housing. As a matter of fact, this is April, I think Lovely B. Johnson passed the Affordable Housing Act in April. But Martin Luther King has already passed, so we're not living out his dream. We'll still got people that get around us. I mean, how do we save our community, or what do we try to initiate or come together, put together to try to save our community? Because another question, before you answer that, I need you to get an understanding of historic, because they call Old Town a historic district. So the town is a historic district, that means everything that's over there is supposed to stay the same. You're just supposed to take and add on and refurbish it. But if you look there, knocking down some of the apartment complex and putting a new one, and then the African American community are not allowed to go in them. So how, if it's historic, how did you knock the building down, but you didn't replicate the building? You know?
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Johnson, for those great points. So the second one I'll take first. Um, so there's a difference when there's a designation of like the state historic site versus a federal historic site, and they're different classifications. Regarding historic, Overtown is historic because of the history of it. Regarding the designation of certain places, there are certain places that are designated where you cannot, where you haven't been able to like tear them down. However, there was a bill passed last session, I believe, that allowed for the demolition of historic sites. And that was a lot of pushback happened with that in session and even after session, because that didn't just affect Black neighborhoods, right? It affected everywhere. So that bill is currently, it was signed by the governor. That's law right now. So navigating that, I think the answer to that would be helping to get more Democrats in the House. Honestly, I like to reverse a lot of this stuff. It's a lot of these two past sessions, it was just a lot. It was a lot because they had a super majority and they did what they wanted to because they could, because they had the numbers. So with the first question you asked about the affordable housing, that's what we brought up with the Live Local Act. I know I did, because I voted against it and my appropriations were threatened because of it. And they were like, you need to think about what votes you're making on the Live Local Act and how that's going to impact your budget. I'm like, excuse me? But in the first version of the Live Local, it eliminated the ability for communities to engage in the process of developers coming into their community. It doesn't require a community meeting anymore. And so when I asked about that, they said, well, the local governments can address it, but there's no requirement for a community meeting. So how do the local governments address it? Well, there was no answer. That was the answer. There was no answer. And it also took preempted the ability for local governments to be able to regulate the height in the areas where development is happening, so as to not change the fabric of the neighborhood. So the second Live Local bill, it actually created some parameters around the height and what the neighborhood looks like and how high a building could be. Companies got around the loopholes. We need legislation that will address those loopholes. The second part of the Live Local that happened this session, they said that it would, but it really didn't at all, because this is not a unique issue to just our community. It's literally happening all across the state of Florida. And what's happening is it's just making it unaffordable in general for everybody, even in like smaller cities or smaller counties. So that's what we're seeing as a result of it. And I know that doesn't sound like an answer. That just sounds like what's the current reality, but I'm still trying to figure out like what could be done because until and unless we can have bills that are introduced to undo or to plug holes into what has been done, um, they're going to keep finding the loopholes that are intentionally in the bills. Because we have in the legislature, we have the ability to make a really good bill and to think about these loopholes and everything. That's what the process is for. But if you have a supermajority, you can do what you want to do because you can, you do, or lesser men than I do, because I know, I don't go by that philosophy, but I'm also not, I wasn't the Speaker of the House. So unfortunately, but we keep fighting for real. Don't give up. And I say this after coming back up there with them for 60 days. Yeah. But all is not lost. This election cycle, we do have the ability to right a lot of wrongs with the election that's coming up. And again, somebody knock on wood for me, but I am hopeful for the next leadership in the House, particularly, that we would have some meaningful solutions to the problems that were created during this session. So I don't know. And not for nothing, the governor is back with not as much power or influence before his failed presidential candidacy. So hopefully going into the last 2 years of his second term, we'll see a lot less complicity in the craziness that he wants to do with the House, particularly with the House. I don't know about the Senate. I don't know the Senate president very well, but that's my internal optimism talking right now. I mean, personally, I think like our ancestors faced death. So like I think we'll be able to get through it and fight. So, that's how I frame the fight in Tallahassee. But I know it's 7:39. Any other questions? Because y'all can ask me questions just with me. No, thank y'all for having me. Thank you, Mayor, to the commissioners and the vice mayor. Thank you for having me. And my office is at the Joseph Caleb Center in Building C. So if you ever, want to make an appointment with me, that's where we are. Um, that's it.
Awesome. So again, we thank our state rep for that wonderful update. Before we leave, we're gonna have a quick presentation from our Planning and Community Development Director. A quick.
Very quick.
Very quick.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Gregory Gay. I'm the Director of Planning and Community Development. And I wanted to announce that we have some new housing that is occurring within the city of Opa-locka. This is an apartment complex, which is on the 22nd Avenue between 138th and 139th Street, and it's called Mosaic. They're building 98 units, a combination of 2, 3, and 4 bedroom units. There are some units that will be set aside as live work units so that if you have your own particular profession, you can operate your profession from where you live at home. So that's a new type of housing product that we're bringing to the city of Opa-locka. The building is about 90% complete. They're ready to start leasing out, and we want to give Opa-locka residents an opportunity to get on the waiting list first to be able to move into this complex. I have a few flyers here. There's some more flyers out in the front. You have to go and call this number for the detailed information to get on the waiting list. We want Opa-locka residents to be able to move into this particular complex. It was built in Opa-locka, so it should be housed by Opa-locka residents. So I want to make that announcement. And if you have any other questions, I do have cards. The information is here for this particular development, and we look forward to having you be a part of this. Thank you.
Right. And I also want to acknowledge our vice mayor who's in the house, Natasha Irvin, Commissioner Dr. Shirlene Bass and Commissioner Veronica Williams, who is here with us for our legislative update with our State Rep Ashley Gant. So we thank you all for coming out to our town hall. We said this is the first of many, and we look forward to the next one. See you at the next one. Thank you all again.